Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to today's Sigstore meeting. I'm Tracy Miranda, your community chair. And as per normal, we're going to start with a project round robin. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Does anyone have any updates for Rico? Okay, I'm going to go with nothing new. Oh, hang on.
I have one comment. The tests now should be able to run in a networkless environment. The network full tests are opt-in. I can't remember if that's merged in yet, but I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Thanks very much, Jack. Anything else on Rico or questions, comments? Okay, Fulcio.
Nothing major. I added an issue for an API where we're able to fetch the Fulcio configuration programmatically. So this would be useful for clients to be able to discover what issuers are supported by the Fulcio instance without going to read configuration code. So that's there. Feel free to chime in if there's any comments on it. But besides that, not too much else going on.
Okay, thank you, Hayden. Cosign.
I don't know if anybody else has anything, but the policy controller, this is a bigger issue than this. Policy controller got renamed from cosigned in the repo to policy controller. It's a breaking Go API change. I think also if you have YAML files, you'll need to rename the API group. And the globs now support ** globs, which aside from making Markdown think everything is bold, also matches multiple path elements. When you specify an image in a repo, you can do /** to get all of those. Let me know if anything breaks as a result of that, because double star globbing is not really specified anywhere. So, yeah.
I can figure something. So I put my hand up.
Go ahead.
Especially with Jason, I can see Jason's here. I never had a chance to get to the dependency refactor group last week.
Yeah, I don't think we had one because of KubeCon.
Yeah. Okay. So is it useful, that group? You planning on heading there on Thursday, Jason, or others?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a targeted mission-driven group, and at some point we will decide the mission is done and stop doing it.
And it seems like work's progressing pretty well. So I've seen you put in a few pull requests.
Yeah, there was some work to refactor how Fulcio roots were surfaced, but then the Fulcio like other larger Fulcio fires happened, so I stopped doing that.
Cool.
But I'll get back to it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, moving on to, oh, hang on. I'll move on, but just let me know if you want to bring that up, Hayden. Git sign.
Oh, sorry, this is Adam Dawson. Can I jump in on cosign? So
yeah,
I think we also, the API version.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
We are not hearing you. Or I'm not hearing you.
Maybe, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is that better? Just the API version was bumped up to V1 Beta 1, I think, and some other just basic work there for cosigned. But I think we were hoping to see when we could cut a release this week for cosigned with all the latest changes.
So we also wanted to move the now named policy controller out into its own repo.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that before we cut that or after we cut that? It's sort of how many breakages do you want?
Yeah, VMware prefers to move it after we cut it because once we move it now, then we have to do this whole big process to import it to VMware and test it again and whatever. But that's a selfish ask. So hate to make that ask, but that would be our preference if nobody else has one.
I don't think I personally have a preference either way. It's just like,
Yeah.
well, I guess also like FYI, everyone, we're going to move it out to its own repo and it's going to break again. So, but we'll do that more likely after the next release.
I think in general that we're waiting on 2 issues before our release. There's something with tough. I don't know if Azure is on the call. And then there's the usage warning that Hayden added. I'm not aware of any others. So once those go in, we should be able to do a release anytime after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would highly advocate for putting in the tough change. I have the actual change done, but I'm still working on getting all the tests done. Like, as I guess we'll talk about it more in the tough post-mortem, but like it doesn't fetch any updated targets ever. So like we definitely need that fixed.
And the statement, I just need to get back to it. I'll try to get that wrapped up today. Just need to respond to a comment.
Sure.
Okay. Just a quick note for folks who might be new joining us, you'll have a chance to introduce yourself at the end. If you do want access to the doc, you do need to join the Sigstore dev mailing list. I'll drop in a link so you can do that and get access. So, okay. In the meantime, Git sign.
Yeah, I could take this. So not too much to update with KubeCon, but just want to point out 244 stars. So thank you everyone for the support. And top of mind, so this was some of the feedback I was seeing on Twitter. It was no surprise to us when we initially released it. The TTY support, so being able to use it like within SSH sessions, stuff like that, and then also key caching for rebasing, stuff like that, are definitely top of mind. And those will probably be the things that we focus on next.
Awesome, and looking forward to your demo a bit later in this meeting. Any comments or questions, really?
So there's one discussion, maybe now's the wrong or right time, about RFC 3161 timestamps in Git. Nobody likes them, but as far as I know, they're required just by Git. Is there any way around that? If we want like something like GitHub to show the signatures is verified.
So
Is that necessary to show the signature is verified? I thought it wasn't showing as verified for other reasons.
It's necessary, but not sufficient.
I don't know if it's necessary. It's extra metadata that we can add, but I don't know. I don't think it is 100% necessary. Like we could just do the cert based and only that and still show up as verified.
My impression was we needed both. They needed the timestamp because otherwise the cert is expired, and they also need to trust the cert.
We probably need to loop in someone from GitHub to know for certain. I don't know off the top of my head. That's probably something specific to the implementation. I know that the GitHub S-MIME sign tool has support for timestamp authorities. But I also believe like that is not enabled by default and it still works, I believe. So we might be able to get away without it, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna keep things moving along. So SGET, any updates there, Jason or others?
None for me this week.
Okay, I see something on tough, the root signing. How did that go?
Yeah, so Hayden very kindly did a lot of work around handling some root signing issues and also starting this post-mortem that's linked over here. And it's shared externally, so you can go ahead and read it. And we put together a bunch of AIs that we want to make sure are done before our next root signing, and also just, yeah, so including fixes and like mitigations and process improvements around the root signing. So in addition to that, it also means that we have to go and actually rotate out our old key holder Luke and introduce Joshua, the new key holder, since because of this issue, we did not do that. And so please take a look at the AIs, and if you're interested in helping any of the unassigned ones out, like maybe feel free to add a comment. Otherwise, Hayden and I will probably go in through and address some of the unassigned ones later on between us. And yeah, leave any comments here if there are any more details that like are not in this postmortem that you want. Again, feel free to add some comments over there, and we can take a look over there. Anything else, Hayden?
I'll just mention, if you're not familiar with the post-mortem process, generally the goal of it is to spend some time reflecting on things that didn't go well during the process, but also things that did go well, places where we got lucky, and then coming up with action items to address all of those points where things didn't go well. So that's what you see here. Priorities are a little iffy here. It's tough because P0s typically mean something that you immediately need to handle, but we define P0s as something that needs to happen before the next root signing event to have more confidence in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, go for it.
Yeah, just to like finalize things, I guess, like as even though like the root signing didn't go quite as planned for V3, like I'm very grateful that we have this postmortem process, because there are a lot of bugs in here that like we totally did not realize unless we had done that root signing. So overall, hopefully this will prevent similar issues by us like improving the testing and process.
Yeah, no, that's a great process. Thanks for sharing that. Looks pretty comprehensive. And when is the next root signing? When's the rough timeline you have to address these things by?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So our current root that we signed like 2 weeks ago or something is valid until November. So like technically the root won't expire until then, but ideally we should do the next root signing before GA or whenever we want to like call for something like that, because most of these AIs are quite needed before we actually guarantee that we'd be able to survive a compromise.
Great. Okay, got it. Any other questions, comments? Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much for that, Hayden and Ezra. Okay, next up, Sigstore GA.
I can speak to this. So we had our weekly meeting, and Bob mentioned that the TAC is going to provide official meaning of what we want GA for Sigstore to mean, and that will mostly cover like the SLOs and what type of guarantees and what type of support and on-call that we will provide. We also reviewed the SLO doc that I have linked here, and we are hoping to provide a 24/7 on-call rotation. That is still going to be worked out by how that would look like by the TAC. We're in the process of migrating the production environment to automated framework, and that is blocked on needing more additional testing. Basically, we don't really have a suite of tests that we could use to validate releases or deployment. So we're looking to have that in place so we have more confidence when we actually roll it out. Bob, do you want to talk to just to confirm, the timeline is to get the official meaning of GA from TAC this week? Is that correct?
That's where we're gonna aim for. I know we've got Dan going out on vacation, so we're gonna try to get it done as soon as possible. But yeah, that's the intent.
Yeah.
So the TAC's Thursday. Dan, you go away on Wednesday. Do we need to bring it forward?
I'll be there Thursday.
You sure? It's your holiday, man. You sure?
I'm only out Wednesday. Yeah.
Only on Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention that while last week we mentioned that we are aiming for GA date of the week of June 21st, since the operations side, that is still up in the air, and we want that in place before GA. We might be pushing out the GA date. I think this is up to what TAC decides on how that is handled. So I guess after this week, hopefully TAC will have a bit more clarity on what's an appropriate GA date.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good update to have, and yeah, look forward to understanding what that date is. We had mentioned at the meeting last week we're going to kick off just gathering the PR folks and reaching out for quotes. I do think this is still worth doing, given it does take time for folks to just get approvals and identify that. So yeah, we'll keep going with that in the background. But yeah, I'd like to, as soon as it's possible, to have a target date. I think that would be great to have. Maybe one question I have: what does it mean for like communities like Kubernetes who are already using it in production? Are they just like get what they get for now?
I think our current SLO is like its best effort. It should be mostly available, but there's no strong guarantees.
I would not recommend anybody fail closed at this moment, because we don't have a SLO that guarantees full coverage. You know, we've tested most of it, but you know, ultimately, if there is some sort of outage after working hours, there's no guarantee that it'd be responded to.
Anything else on Sigstore GA? Okay, I look forward to hearing the outcome of the TAC call. Okay, so moving on to outreach and events, I threw in a little header for a KubeCon. I know there was a Sigstore booth. I wasn't attending, but certainly from social media, they looked like a lot of activity. Any folks want to share comments on how Sigstore was received by that community?
So yeah, I mean, it was a lot of buzz again. You know, a lot of talks around Sigstore, a lot of people curious, constantly people coming up to the booth, so very strong.
It was a little weird at first. There were no talks with the word Sigstore in the title when the CFPs came out, so I was a little worried. But then it seemed like it was in about every talk in the slides.
Yeah. But when you got into the body, it was quite a lot of coverage. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and thanks, Luke, for spearheading the effort, and Red Hat on running the booth. I will say that the next date for KubeCon North America, I think, has been extended to 3rd of June, but maybe we can fix the presence of Sigstore talks and have some very specific talks about using Sigstore and how people can adopt it. So yeah, I highly encourage folks here to submit talks for KubeCon North America, and let's keep the Sigstore presence going.
And we have Austin as well coming up, OSS. So,
oh yeah, great question.
Closed for talks, but you know, there'll be the OpenSSF will be there. So when I hear from them, I'll try and update if we're doing anything with the OpenSSF as well.
Awesome. Are there any plans for a Sigstore booth at that one, Luke?
Not as it stands, no. We might be a little bit too late. I don't know. You see, David Wheeler's just popped up. So I don't know if you know. I know the OpenSSF, we might have some sort of shared booth with the OpenSSF. I need to clarify though.
Yeah. It sounds like if there hasn't been one set up by now, it's not likely. So
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know.
No worries.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, anything else on outreach and events before we go to AOB? Okay, it's privacy in Sigstore. I believe this is Zach.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have put my name. So I've heard a lot of folks sort of ask questions. There's a lot of questions and sort of uncertainty around Sigstore and privacy. And there are a number of reasons one might be concerned. By default, we're basically pushing everyone's email addresses into the Fulcio log and in those certificates. There's a number of other things, and I just wanted to kind of explore, the problem, right? Like what might not be privacy respecting, depending on what you care about in Sigstore, and what might we do about it? And I tried to divide that between things that are possible right now, sort of workarounds or things like that, things that are sort of on the near-term horizon that we have. We know how to do, and there's been some amount of interest in, and if there's a strong interest, we'll probably get these things done. And then there's some more I guess experimental or speculative work as well. I wrote this up largely just to sort of have something to hand to folks when they raise these concerns and say, hey, this is something we're thinking about. You have some options right now, and longer term, hopefully you'll have more. But I shared this out last week in the Slack. I got some great feedback, especially from Hayden. So thank you very much. But I think this might be a fun thing, just to throw up on the Sigstore blog. And I'm pretty explicit in there that it's not binding. It doesn't represent a roadmap, but just is kind of an exploration of the space. So would love. I'll send it out in the Slack again. Would love feedback there. Through the end of the week, and then. If reception is positive, we can talk about putting that out somewhere public to point to.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. I'm looking forward to reading that as well. And yeah, highly encourage, especially folks who are kind of new and learning about Sigstore, to take a look as well and see if that makes sense, or if there's sort of unanswered questions around privacy in Sigstore. Do highlight that, because I think this is a strong area. We should be able to communicate very clearly to all the folks who want to use Sigstore.
Yeah, and again, to be clear about the epistemic status here, this is sort of a brain dump. What came to mind when I sat down at an empty Google Doc and thought about privacy in Sigstore. So it's not comprehensive. I would love your additions, both to sort of privacy concerns and to things we can do about it.
Okay, doesn't sound like there's any questions. So thanks, Zach. And demo time. Okay, so we have Billy's going to give us the latest on the Git sign and GitHub app demo. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and yeah, Billy, you can take over.
All right. Cool. Yeah. So for GitSign, one of sort of the common pieces of feedback we've heard a lot is like, GitHub and GitLab have these verified badges, and when I use the GitSign keyless signatures, they don't show up as verified. And we sort of documented some of the steps, like, oh, this is what would be needed to make these verified, but they're largely changes that would need to be done on GitHub and GitLab side, so we don't really have that much control over that. There have been some discussions, some informal discussions kicked off, I've heard, and we'll keep working towards like sort of a partnership with source provider platforms. But in the meantime, what we were thinking about is like, okay, what can we do in the short term? And so this is something that we've been playing around with internally at ShaneGuard, but it is something that's sort of just broadly useful, and like just sort of generating ideas of like, how can we use GitSign to sort of enforce smarter policies for code review and sort of tying these identity bits together. So as a quick demo, so this is just a sample repo I have. We're just going to go ahead and we're just going to make an unsigned commit, and we're just going to push that to our repo. Nothing special here. So this is unsigned commits, and basically what's happening behind the scenes is there's a GitHub app that's looking for new pull requests. And when it sees this, it's going to see like, oh, hey, you didn't sign your commits. You know, so we're just gonna, you know, throw an error. You know, these links don't actually go anywhere right now, but you know, you can imagine like, hey, like go sign your links. This is how you do it, stuff like that. And what we can do now is if we enable signing, so in my Git config, there's basically Git sign is already set up. So we can just go ahead and Git commits. Message doesn't really matter, but this will be assign commits. So we'll go through the Git sign flow, signer commits. And then we can push this up. And so if we go back to that pull request, you can see, oh, hey, it's unverified, but now there's this new check, right? So we have this GitHub app checking, oh, hey, you know, we saw there was a successful Git commit signature. And because this is a GitHub app, GitHub apps are a little bit different than traditional OAuth GitHub apps or GitHub integrations. They're not really called apps. And so we can actually display Markdown here. And so what we can show here is like, oh, hey, we checked these things. So like we were able to find the signature, we parsed it, we found it in Recore. Here's the certificate that was used. And then here's the corresponding Recore entry that was here as well. So again, this is just something we've been playing around with. We've been using internally with success. It's just sort of one idea that we've been playing around with of like, you know, how do we start enforcing policy? One, just for signatures, but then also we've been thinking about ideas for like, you know, how do we tie, like one of the things we can do here is like, can we tie GitHub identity to pull requests? So does the signature that's on the commit match the user that's sort of making the pull request as well? That's not implemented here, but it's like sort of ideas of, you know, what are the things that we can do next and, you know, other things related to that. So that's all I have. Pretty quick demo, but happy to take any questions.
Yeah, David, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Just a small point. At least when you're in the context of Git, I might say that this is a very small thing because I think this is cool. So when you say signed, may I suggest you say digitally signed or cryptographically signed? In the world of Git, signed means you add a -s and are signing a DCO with signed off by. And you know, so if that's not what you mean, and you don't, you know, digitally signed, cryptographically signed, something else, because otherwise people are going to get the wrong idea and say, "What? Well, I don't need to do anything else. What's the issue?"
Yeah, that's definitely the whole DCO thing is definitely something that's come up a ton. Like, oh, what's the difference? You know, when do I need to do one or the other? So yeah,
you use a different phrase: digitally signed, cryptographically signed. If somebody has another word, that's great. But that word already has a meaning, so make it clear that you mean a different one, because you should get credit for it. Thanks.
Good sign. Thanks, David. Luke?
Yeah, I was going to say, so that looks really cool. Is there any plan to open source the code so we could have like a Sigstore app?
I will pass that to Dan.
Because I noticed it'd be nice to have Sigstore where it says chain guard enforce. Maybe Dan's left. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I'm supportive of it, but yeah, I mean, again, this is just something that we've been playing around internally.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, cool. It's a demo. Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, so something David, something that spins off from David's question, is the digital signature, is it attached to the author or the committer?
It's attached to the committer, I believe.
Okay. Is that because just that's how Git works or GitHub works? I'm not that familiar with the signing mechanisms in Git and GitHub.
I believe that's how Git works. So the signature is using the same mechanism that you'd use for normal digital signatures for Git. It's just replacing the signing tool that's being invoked by Git. So whatever identity is sort of local to that committer at that time is the one that's going to be using.
maybe something we could do, because one of my very low on my list of nitpicks these days is to refer to signing as authorial attestation, and this is committer attestation. I don't know whether we can suggest that language to GitHub as a long-term thing.
Yeah, so part of the problem with like authoring signatures is that like rebasing is a feature where you're effectively impersonating other users. And that is viewed as a feature within Git. And it's really only the committer that's sort of saying like, oh, I'm applying this to this branch and to this history. So as much as I would like that, I don't know how much we can actually do that within the framework of Git itself.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's another thing I hadn't thought about. For people who are from beloved cults like myself, where pair programming is done all day, that's definitely going to be a question that comes up, as well as can two people attach? Can you attach both authorial and committer to, attestations?
With this mechanism, no, but one of the other things we wanted to start playing around with is like, can we also digitally sign like Git notes or other sort of special refs on top of that? And that would be a place where we can sort of put other attestations onto commits, though they wouldn't be on the commit itself, right? So you'd have like one signature embedded in the commit that would be like, okay, who committed this to the repository? And then everything else would be sort of shoved into a special ref. Either we could use Git notes to start, or we can even look into putting it into like a different ref space if we wanted to.
Okay, that all makes sense. Thanks.
So in order to get the GitHub like verified badge to green, right now I guess you'd have to plug a public key in. Is it just fundamentally impossible to do that with this kind of signing method? Because this would probably break other things like git log with show signature, and then like adding the public key to my store will then show, okay, this person has signed this. Whereas if I have to go check recall for individual commits, that'd be a bit funny.
So for Git sign, because it plugs into the Git tool itself, like it follows the same interface, Git log will work out of the box because it will invoke the verified method for that. The changes that need to be made for the green verified badge need to be made by GitHub, and so there's two main reasons right now why it doesn't show up as verified. One is because GitHub relies on the Debian CA certificate bundle, which is a mirror of what Mozilla uses, and the Sigstore root is not part of that today. So that's one reason. If we did that, they would start showing up for green, but only for 10 minutes, basically for the lifetime of the certificates. And so the next step that they would need to do is basically start checking Recor to basically do the same thing that like cosign and get signed do, of like, okay, signature checks out, plus it's evident, it's present in the transparency log. So those are the main two things missing. So it would require a change on GitHub's end for how to do signature checking today.
So one more question, slightly less related to the demo, but still on the topic of this this signing tool. I guess, does this pose any additional benefits compared to like so Dan had a Medium article that mentioned how if you compromise someone's GitHub account, you can just replace the public keys. So if you don't have like a web of trust, posting a public key elsewhere, just having it in GitHub isn't much of a protection. So if you were to use this and just OAuth with GitHub, would that be the exact same problem, or is there a way to enforce multiple OAuth providers at the same time, that kind of thing?
I think like one of the things that you get with this transparency log, which is true of other things, is like, even if your account is compromised, you can write policy to say, at the times that my account was compromised, don't trust these commits. And then once you have control of your account again, you can trust it again. You can maybe multiple sign with different OIDC providers, and that might give you some other guarantee. But I think that's kind of the thing in general with the record transparency log is you will have compromised signatures there, but the only tool you have against that is to write a policy that says don't trust during these compromised periods. This is a time when I know my account was compromised, basically.
Okay, and if GitHub was modified to make the badge go from yellow to green, would it need some additional work to review those policies and then maybe mark it as yellow or red or something based on that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I haven't had any personal conversation with GitHub yet. I know other people have had informal conversations with friends at GitHub. But I think that's something that we would need to work through for sure.
Okay, thanks very much, Billy. And yeah, anyone can follow up offline for any more questions. But yeah, no, that was super. Okay, a few other AOBs I threw in. Just a quick update on logos. Thanks for all the input folks had over the last few weeks. We're waiting on the final design files from the LF Creative Services team. And yeah, then we'll be able to start propagating those and doing any follow-ups. Another point on standardization, as we've got a number of different language communities who are starting to integrate with Sigstore, so folks like Python and Java, I think it's time to start the conversation around what would standardizing some of those APIs or even having a specification around Sigstore look like. Now, this happens to be one of the specialist areas which the Linux Foundation does support its projects on. And there's a whole raft of options, and it kind of comes down to the community and their goals and their timelines. And it can be done in various ways, from starting with some incremental lightweight motions to building up to, big standard bodies. So Jory Burson actually does a lot in this space. And she was willing to come along and start a discussion, which initially is just more like, where are things headed? What should we be thinking about? And just then outline some different categories of types of options. There's things like the Joint Development Fund, which is something lightweight that the GraphQL folks use, and then there's all the way up to IETF and big standards. So it's a whole kind of spectrum, but I thought it would be worthwhile having an open discussion to get folks on the same page of what are the questions we should be asking ourselves. Yeah, so Jory will come into that, and yeah, just in your question, Luke. So we're not talking about picking a specific standard yet. I think once Jory talks us through the options, there will come a point where we do want to sort of maybe map out a roadmap, or then have the tech decide what makes sense. So yeah, so if any questions and thoughts on that, and we'll allocate some time towards the end of the next meeting to start learning about that and see if there's any initial things we should start to put in place. Just things like for some standardization things, you have to formally capture decisions or discussions, and I think it's worth knowing about now.
I'll hear what's said next week, and then I've got some questions, but might as well see it presented first.
Yeah. David, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly add that I think one of the other issues is that some organizations like to play patent games, so that there are licenses and things you can use to counteract that if you want to go down that road. So there's a couple things you can do that can prevent future pain later. And we recommend preventing future pain if we can help it.
Right. Yeah, and I'll add, like when I was at CDF, we had a CD events project, and even in the early days, they had an initial discussion, and it was worthwhile just to start planting the seeds for folks to think about down the road. Right, and a final note on the Sigstore YouTube channel, Roxanne Joncas, who also works with some Linux Foundation communities, has helped clean up some of the playlists and also linked in some community talks you could find on Sigstore. But we wanted to just let folks know, if you have a talk on Sigstore you think that should be featured on the Sigstore YouTube channel, do let us know and she can link that in. And yeah, we'll try generally to keep it cleaned up and up to date, and we'll be looking to see how we can get more of these videos uploaded. Great. Any other business before we go to introductions? Okay, so intros. This is the part of the call where if you're new or relatively new to the community, we'd love you to say hello and welcome you. And if you can share what brings you here, what you're looking to get out of Sigstore, work with the community on, we'd love to hear it. So yeah, first of all, go ahead, Isaac.
Hi there, I'm Isaac. I work at Google, and so I work with Bob, Azra, Apu, Simon, and so on, the open source team at Google. I'm new to Google, about 2 months here, and just ramping up on all things Sigstore, Salsa, OpenSSF. So thank you for the kind welcome, and I'm going to be in listening mode for a while, but thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Yeah, glad to have you here and very welcome. Any other introductions?
Yeah, hi. I'm Brian DeHamer. I'm a new hire at GitHub on the recently formed package security team. So we're definitely very interested in what's happening with Sigstore, and I'm sure we'll be integrating some of this stuff into our work. I'm still trying to get my feet under me, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be doing in the short term, but yeah, so we'll be here lurking, listening for a while, but hoping to be contributing shortly.
Awesome. Yeah, very welcome, Brian. Thanks for sharing. David?
I guess technically I may be new to this particular meeting, though a whole lot of you know me. So, but I'm at the Linux Foundation. Mostly, I assume that other folks like Dan and Luke have things well in hand. But I wanted to slip in because you know, I very much am looking forward to all the cool things that all of you are doing.
Awesome. Yeah, always welcome and good to see you joining us. Thanks, David. Any other intros? Okay, let's leave it there for today. And yeah, second Eduardo and saying welcome all. Thanks very much for all your updates and demos today. Next week's meeting, same time, same place. We do have Jory on the schedule, and anyone else, please feel free to add to that over the week. And thanks very much, everybody. Have a good week.